Welcome, fellow and future metalheads, to the Metal Substance, a series about metal music and its history, created for the long-term goal of eventually funding the creation of a seasonal city metal philharmonic. I'm your host, call me Victor. Today we are talking about an album from 1986, Slayer's Reign in Blood. We are learning about one of the most unquestionably pivotal and influential bands and albums in the history of all metal and thrash in particular. Slayer's third album, Reign in Blood, is clocking in at less than 29 minutes, which is apparently all the time you need to create a work celebrated the world over while being a foundation for everything from death metal to black metal to grindcore and more. Now, make no mistake, Slayer's first two albums, 1983's Show No Mercy and 1985's Hell Awaits, are what established Slayer as perhaps the most ferocious and dark act in thrash metal. However, Reign in Blood is where the Slayer sound was refined at every level. Riffs are more focused, the songwriting is dark as hell, the production is outstanding, and the result is a record that has stayed a benchmark for metal as we sit here 40 years after its release on October 7th, 1986. Reign in Blood was the album that turned Slayer into fucking Slayer! But before we get into the creation of this record, let's actually meet the players. Slayer hail from Huntington Park, California, a city in the south central region of Los Angeles County. They formed in 1981 from the foursome of Chilean-born Tom Araya on bass and vocals, Cuban-born Dave Lombardo on drums, and Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman as the twin guitar riff machines of the band. These four were joined by producer Rick Rubin, founder of Def Jam Records, for the making of Reign in Blood. Rick Rubin was famous at that point for being a producer of hip-hop recordings, not metal. Though he had been in a garage punk band called Hose for a couple years, Rubin was associated with acts like Public Enemy and LL Cool J, not Slayer, whose Reign in Blood would be his first official work producing a metal album. Rick Rubin's crucial difference on the album was seeking a clarity of sound. Slayer's early work was very lo-fi and has a choppy production quality to it, to put it bluntly. Now, there are people who like that. It would be one of the trademarks of the second wave of black metal to try and imitate those records. With Reign in Blood, however, Rubin pushed for drum miking that made you feel the impact, riffs that were clearly audible, and when Tom is screaming on Angel of Death, he makes sure it slices right through the mix like sharp glass into your ears. This all worked to Slayer's advantage because however one feels about the music itself, it's precise and well executed, and this type of production allowed Slayer's strengths to shine. Slayer's brand of thrash was more than just speed for speed's sake. It was about precision, aggression, and the kind of rhythm changes that I think can only really result from when your front man is a bassist. Kerry King, when asked about this production, said, quote, "Right away, the first thing you notice is there's no reverb on it. That allows it to be way more threatening. It hits you in the forehead." End quote. All right, let's talk about the song stuff. I'm not going to do a track-by-track breakdown on this album because, in my opinion, it's a single document of thrash that culminates in the title track, which is basically the thrash national anthem. I will say that the first minute of the record is one of metal's greatest. 30 seconds of sharp riffing into a long scream, followed by Tom screaming, "Auschwitz!" That's Slayer's way of saying, the door is right there whenever you want to leave. So let's instead just talk broadly about what each member is doing here. Tom Araya's voice is perfectly suited for delivering all this album requires from him, whether that's narration, shouting, or screams that can make your hair stand up. He's keeping pace on the guitar riffs, with the guitar riffs, I meant to say, so that the rhythmic assault on you never stops. Dave Lombardo is one of the trailblazers of double bass drumming and can spit out drum fills almost effortlessly while never allowing the momentum of the music to fall away. Then there's the double guitar team of Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King. They were more than run-of-the-mill speedsters running through a few blues riffs. They could swiftly swap between tremolo picks, palm-muted rhythm runs, running through jagged chords to build dissonance while keeping a rhythm. And in the solos, it's just this wrangled chaos. Atonal runs, chromatic runs, dive bombs, bends that scream, and so much whammy bar abuse that I'm not sure how they weren't needing guitars repaired after every gig. These solos, especially for me anyway, create an atmosphere not only of darkness but of panic in the record. You've wandered into the kingdom of Satan. It's not going to go good for you, buddy. Jeff Hanneman had this to say about it. Quote, "One thing about me and Carrie is we get bored of riffs really quick. We can't drag the same thing over and over or do the same verses 6 times in a song. If we do a verse 2 or 3 times, we're already bored with it," end quote. The rapid riff picking, the wild guitar solos, the double bass drums, as well as very violent lyrical content would influence many of the early death metal bands, such as Death, Morbid Angel, Deicide, and of course, Cannibal Corpse. On the black metal side, acts like Immortal and Dark Throne owe something to Slayer's work as well. Now, it wouldn't be a famous metal record if there wasn't some controversy. Over the course of less than a half-hour record, Slayer covers topics ranging from, but not limited to, war, the Holocaust, death, witchcraft, serial killers, religious blasphemy, and of course, the evil in humanity. I guess you can cover a lot of ground quickly when you sing that fast. Just look at these lyrics from Piece by Piece, for example. "You have no choice of life or death. My face you will not see. I'll rip your flesh till there's no breath. Dismembered destiny." And then, of course, there's Angel of Death, which describes the crimes of the infamous Nazi Joseph Mengele. Naturally, because people are stupid as hell, they took this as some sort of sympathy with the man's actions. It certainly was and continues to be provocative. But again, listen to the whole album at once. Because what A Love Supreme was for jazz is what Slayer's Rain and Blood is to metal music. I mean, it took me longer to write up my notes for the album than to listen to the album. Really, brevity is the soul of riff. But I wanted to actually digress for a moment here and sort of ask the question, where are the great thrash metal double albums? And why don't they really exist? Because thrash is the land of 1,001 riffs, which are going to be likely as not played north of 200 beats per minute. However, there's this usual broad uniformity to a lot of thrash metal music. I'd maybe compare it to looking at a fire itself. We know what fire is. We see it every day of our lives, or at least some imitation of it. And it's a fascinating thing for a lot of people. I mean, for God's sakes, you got people these days who still smoke cigarettes and they do the cringe thing. When I'm smoking, I'm holding Prometheus in my hand, whatever. Anyway, you can only hold on to fire for so long. You can only go this fast for so long. The longest massively popular thrash album from this era is Metallica's And Justice for All, which is over twice as long as Rain and Blood. Hell, you can listen to both Rain and Blood and Slayer's South of Heaven album in the time it takes to get through And Justice for All. Metallica themselves said they got sick of playing the songs from this album. Jeff Hanneman had this to say about it. Wait, I already said the quote, yeah, but it's like, he didn't want to do the same thing over and over. They weren't trying to make the songs shorter, but it's what they were into. So I guess, ultimately, as Shakespeare wrote in a play that takes over 3 hours to play out when uncut, brevity is the soul of wit. So, thanks for permitting me the singular satisfaction of speaking on a subject so sacred that mere speech scarcely suffices. That being Slayer, a savage, supreme, seismic spectacle of sound, a sovereign standard standing steadfast against softness, sentimentality, and surrender. Since stepping onto the scene, Slayer has sculpted the very shape of sonic savagery, striking steel into the soul of heavy metal. See the 6 strings set screaming. See the sticks of Dave Lombardo shatter silence with surgical speed. See the sinister shrieks of Tom Araya summon storms of sound. See Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King, those sinister smiths of shredding, spinning spirals of serrated riffs that still send shivers through seasoned supporters. Some shrink from Slayer's subject matter. They see slaughter, suffering, and sacrilege. They mistake scrutiny for sympathy, storytelling for celebration. Such simplistic suppositions say far more about the spectator than the source. Slayer stares straight into society's shadow, stripping away sanitation and sentiment, showing humanity's savage side without surrendering to it. So to conclude, Slayer's Reign in Blood is celebrated as a watershed moment in metal's evolution, and it fully deserves that. It's a blending of hardcore punk, technical musicianship, and Slayer's darkness, focused into half an hour of metal history. It's an essential chapter in the book of extreme metal. All right, our 3 songs to listen to for the album. Highly recommend Angel of Death, title opener, Reign of Blood, album closer, national anthem of thrash metal, and Jesus Saves, for a critique of religion, not necessarily Christianity. I'll leave it to you to interpret it how you will. Okay, other things that are going on the channel. War Through the Ages book club I'm going to be making notes on it next week. So within the next 2 weeks, we should see that get going. And once it does get going, it's gonna start happening very, very fast. I'm going to start at the beginning of August. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be done by mid-September. Maybe October, depending on how weekends are going. Don't forget that there is no substitute for listening to the album yourself. And remember that history will be written by the victor.